Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and today I'm going to be going over my Houston Texans 53-man roster projection after the final preseason game where the Texans beat the New Orleans Saints 17-13. I'm going to be going over what I think the Houston Texans 53-man roster should look like, and let's go over it. We're going to go over by position and what I think the Houston Texans will do with positions. So let's get into it. So I know there's been a lot of controversy of, will the Texans release a quarterback? Will they release Mills or Keenum? They'll definitely release E.J. Perry, but which will they run three quarterbacks, or will one of Mills or Keenum get cut? I think the Texans will roll with all three quarterbacks. I think the Texans will keep Stroud. Of course, they're going to keep Stroud. I think the Texans are going to keep Mills, and they're going to keep Keenum, and those will be the three quarterbacks on the roster, and E.J. Perry will be cut. Then the running backs. I know some people think the Texans are going to run with four running backs, but I have the Houston Texans going with three running backs, and that's Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary, and Mike Boone. And with that being said, DeRay Ungaballaway gets cut, Jared Dokes gets cut, and Larry Rountree gets cut. Wide receiver, I have six wide receivers: Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Noah Brown, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson in the wide receiver room for the Houston Texans. That means Steven Sims Jr., Adam Humphries, Johnny Johnson, Jalen Camp, and I think there's one more guy that would be cut for the wide receiver group. And then the tight ends, I have four tight ends making the roster, but Brevin Jordan right now, who I have making the 53-man roster, is hurt, and he might be questionable for Week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. But and the other tight end I have making this roster is going to be playing fullback for the Houston Texans this season. Dalton Schultz, Tegun Quantanaro, Brevin Jordan, and Andrew Beck, who will be playing fullback. Offensive line, I have the Houston Texans rolling with 10 offensive linemen: Laramie Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, and Shaq Mason and Titus Howard, the starters. And then here for the backups: George Fant, Josh Jones, Michael Dieter, Jared Patterson, and Jimmy Morrissey. And then also Charlie Heck, but he is on IR right now, or physical unable to perform. And then here for the defensive line: number 3 overall pick, Will Anderson Jr., Malik Collins, and Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackles. Jonathan Grenard, those should be the four starters for the Texans defensive line. Then for the backups, Hassan Ridgeway, Dylan Horton, Jerry Hughes, Roy Lopez, and Jacob Martin. That means draft pick from the 5th round from last year, Thomas Booker the 5th, gets cut. Also, Chase Winovich gets cut. Those are some of the noticeable positions that get cut at the defensive line. But I think that's what the Houston Texans will roll with for the defensive line. Then the linebacker group, I think the Texans go with six players, with linebacker Christian Harris, Denzel Perryman, and Blake Cashman, the starters. And then, of course, Henry the rookie. And then I think Corey Littleton makes the roster. But I think the biggest question for linebacker, does Christian Kirksey make the roster as that last linebacker for the Houston Texans? Does Christian Kirksey beat out a Garrett Wallow or a Jake Hansen or somebody else in this linebacker group? I think he will, but I think it could come very close. I don't think Garrett Wallow will, but I think maybe Jake Hansen could make the roster as a linebacker instead of Christian Kirksey. But I do think Kirksey will make the roster. And then as for the secondary, I have the starters: Derek Stingley Jr., Jalen Petrie, Jimmy Ward, Steven Nelson. And then for the backups, Desmond King II, Shaq Griffin, Tavier Thomas, Eric Murray. And I want to go so badly with Cameron Dantzler. He's a guy who's done so well for Minnesota. Had an interception today, but I think that last spot will probably go to MJ Stewart II. But I hope the Texans will pick up Cameron Dantzler for the practice squad. He's a stud, and has been great for Minnesota, and was great today with the interception. And then for special teams, for the final spots on special teams, Farron Barron, the kicker, John Weeks, the long snapper, and Ty Zentner, the punter, with Cameron Johnson most likely being out Week 1 and Week 2, being out the first 2 weeks of the season. So you have a couple players that, as of right now, count as like an IR or like a physical unable to perform, which I don't think they count as a roster spot. And those guys are Cameron Johnston, the punter, Charlie Heck, offensive tackle, and tight end Brevin Jordan. So, I mean, yeah, just using your thoughts on my 53-man projection, projections for the Texans. A couple guys, notable guys get cut. Not Eric Tomlinson. Well, he does get cut, but he's not a notable guy. Garrett Wallow and Thomas Booker, recent rookies in the 2021, 2022 drafts get cut. Also, Chase Winovich gets cut. Cameron Dantzler gets cut. And a lot of other notable players to this Texans team get cut. But yeah, using her thoughts on my 53-man roster predictions / projection for the Houston Texans. And you guys give me what you think the 53-man roster should look like for these Houston Texans. That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Go Texans.